Okay. Right, we've got a few people in the room, so right, let's make a start. Well, look, good morning all. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is James Gregory, and I am the Strategic Business Manager here at 3D Repo. I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues. Bogdan is with me. He will be delivering the demonstration part of today's session. We've also got our commercial director, Andrew, in the background somewhere to support with the Q&A as they come through. So I'll be delivering a presentation shortly, but before I do that, bit of housekeeping. There is a Q&A box. Feel free to ask questions as we go. We'll pick up that Q&A at the end. We are going to run a few polls along the way. We want to kind of gauge the audience and ask you guys some questions that might be pertinent to your roles. So before I jump into the presentation, I'm just going to launch the first poll. So that should come through in a couple of moments. Now, we just want to see and understand you guys, the roles that you're in. So if you could start to contribute through to that poll, that'd be great. And as I see those numbers start to gain momentum, I'll jump straight into the slides. Brilliant. There we go. Okay. Well, as I say, thanks for joining. So before we deliver the demonstration, I just want to sort of set the scene a little bit about who 3D Repo are, what it is that we do, and the theme for today's session, which is primarily around health and safety and unlocking the benefits of BIM. So 3D Repo, we are essentially a digital twin platform for BIM data. Quite a broad statement. You know, we certainly believe that we are in an enabler to the philosophies and the principles that the digital twin strategies are based upon. Hopefully more of that will become clear as we move through the presentation, but I think it's important you understand a little bit about our founding principles and, you know, why it is that we do what we do. 3D Repo is set up, you know, for one of the reasons we found BIM software to be far too complex. A lot of the proprietary software products like Revit and Navisworks, you know, they're great and powerful platforms if you know how to use them. But if you sort of dip in and dip out of software, they can become quite difficult to pick up and put down. So we've tried to make 3D Repo as simple to use and as easy for people to access the data we hold as possible. We find that BIM can create knowledge silos because that complex software that's being used by the specialists of the business. You know, access to information is difficult. So only a certain amount of people within a project team have access to the information that others may well need in order to make decisions about that project at given times. We find interoperability is hard. Now, a lot of the big software vendors make interoperability hard because they want to get software lock-in. We believe that only creates more silos. We believe that prevents collaboration across the industry. And we see that collaboration is the key to digitization across the industry as we move forward. A lot of those proprietary software also have proprietary data lock-in issues. Again, we want to change that. We want to knock down those barriers so that data is accessible by all. When we bring information and data into 3D Repo, we essentially crack that data open and make that data open for other platforms to consume using our APIs and their APIs. So we want to really sort of break down those barriers that proprietary data lock-in causes. But moreover, you know, we see every project is different, but we need to be able to make simple decisions using simple solutions about different types of projects, whether it's rail, road, buildings, infrastructure. You know, every project has a different set of requirements and different needs. So we want to try and provide a nice, simple communication and collaboration platform for all users on all types of projects. Okay, so the 3D Repo platform is built with three core solutions. The first of which is plan-based. So plan-based is primarily used at early stage design and planning. It provides a web-based environment for 3D assets, should they exist at that stage, to be opened up to communities for review, comment, and whatever is needed at that sort of early stage of a given project. 3D Repo IO This is our core offering and what we're going to talk about in more detail today. So I'm going to leave the slides regarding 3D Repo IO for a few moments. And 3D Send is another one of our core products. So 3D Send, it's a free to use application. Jump on our 3D Send site today. It enables users to share BIM models, BIM files in a fully secure and encrypted way, but it also provides the recipient of those files and those BIM models with a simple free to use model viewer. So a great way to share models and enable other parties to be able to view models really quickly. We're also able to push our data through to engines such as Unity and Unreal, and that really opens up, an unlimited amount of possibilities on what can be done with that BIM data in those different solutions. As I've mentioned, being open, collaboration, really important to us. Our Open Web Service API is modern. It's been connected to a number of different platforms and systems. You can see a plethora of those systems below. As long as the software vendor at the other end has a good API and they're prepared to open that API and work with us, we've not seen software come across our desk yet that we've not been able to connect into. So look, if you need to look at how we can connect data to other platforms via 3D Repo, again, that's bread and butter for us and what we're trying to deliver here. So data consumption, how do we get data into 3D Repo? There are three core solutions or workflows to bring data into 3D Repo. The first is with our plugins. We have most of the sort of main authoring tools that I'm sure you guys are using and are familiar with. So if you've got these platforms, download the plugins, you can push data directly into 3D Repo from that authoring solution. You can direct upload. You can drag and drop files into team workspaces or to containers within the 3D Repo platform itself. Or the third option, and this is one we're seeing more and more commonly used, is direct from the CDE. So connecting the CDE via the API to 3D Repo. So we've got automated push and pull of data between those two platforms. And on the left at the bottom there, you can see a number of solutions we've connected to recently, ProjectWise, Procore, A-Site, ACC and Group BC. We know there are others, and it won't be long before the use cases come to us where we need to connect into other common data environment platforms. Okay, so a little bit about the software. So this slide just gives you guys a bit of an overview and a very simple insight into the user interface, nice and simple. We've tried to get as much of the model on screen as possible to make it interactive for the users. Down the left-hand side, we have the different modules within 3D Repo. Across the bottom, we have the navigation commands, and I'll talk on the next slide about what the different commands do. But I'm hoping that's not too jittery your end. It's nice and crisp on my end. We have got quite a few attendees in the room, so quite a lot of strain on the bandwidth maybe. But yeah, I'm hoping that wasn't too stuttery. Okay, so 3D Repo IO, our core offering. Here are some of the different modules and some of the different things that you can do within the 3D Repo platform. Issue tracking to communicating issues is fundamental to us. The ability to clash detect models, so bring in native models into 3D Repo, federate those models together, understand where there are clashes within those models. We can then use the issue tracker to communicate those issues out to different disciplines, different parties to resolve. Our 3D diff module enables different revisions of models to be compared, what's new, what's changed, what's been removed, what's been added, and we can see that in a nice graphical interface. Our data validation solution enables the data within our models to be validated and for issues that may exist within those data sets in comparison to the standards and requirements to be found, and those issues to then be communicated out via our issue tracking solution. And all of this feeds directly into analytical platforms. Here you can see some Power BI dashboards consuming data from the different modules within the 3D Repo IO platform. Now, Safety Base is where we're going to spend most of today's session, and I'll talk about Safety Base in a few slides' time. So security, very important to us. We are ISO 9001 and 27001, and we also hold Cyber Essentials. I believe we're the only BIM software vendor to hold all 3 of those accreditations. Moreover, all of our software is developed here in the UK, and all of our data is primarily hosted here in the UK. I'll talk about hosting a little bit now. 3 options. We can host in our London AWS environment, which is our sort of standard offering. We do have servers in Montreal for customers within those regions. Alternatively, we can install or deploy 3D Repo into any cloud provision, should that be AWS, Google, or Microsoft Azure. We can also offer an on-premise solution in an air-gapped server environment, should you so wish. Some of our customers range from clients to principal contractors, design teams, engineering firms. So if you guys fall into any of these categories, then look, reach out to us. We can talk about the work we're doing in these spaces and see whether there's synergy with your company, your processes, and your workflows. Okay, so let's now spend a bit of time on safety base, because this is the solution we're going to be presenting when Bogdan takes over with a demonstration shortly. So safety base was spawned from an I3P led initiative, Innovate UK consortia with 3D Repo, with Atkins and Lot McDonald. Andrew Norrie, who's on the call there in the middle, was our lead. And essentially, it was a number of companies coming together to start to define how risks and issues were tracked and managed on projects within different organizations. And what we found by looking at how this information was tracked and managed, even with different projects within the same organizations, we concluded that data was unstructured, it was disconnected, and it was complicated. And what that meant, that information was not transferable or interoperable. So lessons from one project couldn't be learned on another project. Treatments to certain risks that were identified on a given project couldn't then be used to treat the same risks on another project. So what we needed to build was a more structured and more connected and a more simple way of categorizing and defining and managing risk information on complex construction and infrastructure projects. This project took 3 phases. Phase 1 was to understand how do we extract the data and develop simple interfaces. This was originally a SharePoint solution. Phase 2 was how do we now build that into an open source platform, into a cloud-based system within the 3D Repo IO solution. The third phase was then how do we connect all of that information to dashboards so that different people, different stakeholders on projects were able to view the data and make decisions in a much more coherent fashion. We were quite lucky that during this project, PAS 1192 Part 6 was released. And this then gave us a real clear and definitive way to categorize and to standardize risk information across projects, across the industry. We built this into Safety Base, and Safety Base now follows this process. And this is the process that Bogdan will demonstrate to you shortly, where essentially we upload a model, we identify risks, we classify those risks in alignment with PAS 1192 Part 6, we assign responsibility of that risk for a particular individual, discipline, or company. We create treatment plans or use existing treatment plans from industry, from other projects. We collaborate around that risk to find the best resolution. We review that risk in the authoring tool, make the necessary changes, upload the model back to 3D Repo, close out that risk, or push that risk back through a different workflow should we not have been able to resolve that risk first time round. Some of the features and benefits of Safety Base: we can work with 2D, 3D, or 4D model data. We are 100% cloud-based, so you can access the platform and you can access your information anytime, anywhere. We support all major file formats and integrate with a number of the leading authoring tools that I'm sure you guys are using excuse me, on a daily basis. We integrate with the likes of Power BI, SharePoint, and Excel and others so that data can be presented. But moreover, we're providing a full audit trail of that data, of those decisions, what happened, why, where, and when, and by whom. Some of the benefits, as I've mentioned, full compliance with PAS 1192 Part 6. We're making it nice and easy for people to access BIM data when they need to. We're providing a much faster way to collaborate between organizations and between disciplines. We're providing a solution to identify risks much earlier on in the design and development stages of a project. But we're also providing a solution to get suggestions to mitigate risks from past projects, providing greater transparency and accountability, all of which are really important with the Building Safety Bill and the Golden Thread initiatives that are now becoming more common throughout the industry. Okay, so look, that's my presentation over. Now, I'm going to let Bogdan get ready. We have some more polls, guys. So if you just bear with me while I end the first poll, I'm now going to pop another poll up on screen and launch that. So while that poll is ticking over, Bogdan, I'll stop sharing if you're ready. If you now want to take control and share your screen, that'd be great.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be up and running now. Thanks.
Yeah, we've got you now. Perfect. Thanks, Bogdan.
Amazing. So you can see the screen, yeah?
Yeah, we've got your screen.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Manish. I appreciate that. Sorry, guys, for a slight delay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning into this webinar. It's great to have you on board, and I hope you guys are aware of the existence of 3D Repo on the market, and now some of you who might not be familiar with the product know what it is that we do. For those of you who are familiar, maybe you might find out something new from today's webinar session, so that's also a bonus. But essentially what I'm going to do now is take all of that concept that was presented by James during the presentation and show you how it actually works in practice and how it can benefit your current BIM workflow, and how you can use your BIM data to help you mitigate risks better, and also capitalize on all of that information that industry standards like PAS 1192 Part 6 are trying to focus on. So as pointed out earlier, 3D Repo is a cloud-based solution. So as you can see in here, all I did is I opened up a web browser, I typed in 3drepo.io, log in, and there we are. So I don't need to download and install anything. I can just crack on with whatever task I may be assigned on the project. Now, for instance, what is the benefit of having access to the data through a cloud? Essentially, it's the fact that, once again, I don't have to install anything. And if we head over to our demo team space, I'll show you what I can actually do. So today we'll focus primarily on safety base, but I'll also touch bases on some other features that you can make use of as well. So for instance, in this case, why would I want to consider tools like safety base to help me with health and safety and risk management or mitigation of risks? Let's say they are before things happen on site, or maybe during construction stages, is the fact that I can, for instance, let's go and make use of our issues and risks board, right? So this is the plain simple workflow that I can even start using to get myself going, right? One of the main issues we have right now is the fact that you may have an information that is containing all of your exchange on how to mitigate risks, who identified it, where it is happening, but that often resides in some document like Excel in a common data environment that doesn't benefit the rest of the team, because yes, it may sound like as if it is centralized single source of truth, but it's not centralized in the sense that anyone can access it and anyone can feed information in and out of it. So in here, I'll show you how we're going to go through this process and how I, a project member, can easily mitigate risks, whether it's just a plain risk identification or even capitalize on the access to 3D model, and how other project members can pull that information out into whatever other application they're using. So for instance, I may start my process by saying, okay, I had enough of using Excel. It's an endless table that just doesn't make any sense, right? In here, I may want to come in and maybe understand what my risks are, what's the level of risk. Maybe I want to find out what's the mitigation status, right? Is there anything rejected, agreed, or anything unmitigated, right? When I'm in this environment, what's really convenient is that I can easily see what's going on, right? I don't have to, spend, hours trying to figure out which cell is what and what risk is this associated with. All of the information about risk resides here. Any kind of common subsequent conversation from that actual risk identification happens in here as well. So it's all centralized. You don't need to send emails and then mention to somebody, oh yeah, have a look at that Excel spreadsheet, and then they forget which one it is and where it is, you know. Everything happens here under one roof, right? And as you go through things, you can easily see what they are, where they're happening, you know. You can open up, see if there's any screenshot or anything like that. Should the person be working on site or elsewhere, they can also share information with you as well, right? They can maybe upload some site pictures, do some markup or anything like that. But notice that the environment is not a steep learning curve, right? We're all familiar with the likes of Facebook, WhatsApp, Trello, right? So why do we have to reinvent the wheel? Why don't we allow 90% of the team who struggle with BIM processes have to go through such a complicated and steep learning curve, right? Why don't they just open it and be familiar with the process itself, or being able to comment, you know, tag somebody, identify anything, you know, just have a general conversation like you always do in any other application, right? And then whilst you're here, you can, you know, save some time, maybe drag and drop things and identify them, maybe have a look at the actual issue again, maybe see what's happening there. Now, this is plain and simple, right? This is me just saying, okay, I'm going to take my first step and say, let's move away from that monotonous task of, you know, losing sight of which cell belongs to which column in the Excel spreadsheet, right? I have everything in a nice dashboard here that actually conveys the picture of the project at this moment in time quite nicely. Now, how else can I capitalize on it? Well, actually, since PAS 1192 Part 6 is emphasizing for us to focus on BIM and make the most of it, right? Let's actually make the most of it, right? If we do have access to 3D models and we can review these risks in those 3D models, let's do that, right? So the number one issue we have is that not everyone has access to maybe those files. Even if they do, they don't have that £2,000 or £3,000 license to open the file in the first place, right? So once again, your entry points are quite expensive and also quite time consuming. You have to go to your IT to ask to install, forget about it, right? Let's keep it simple, right? All I have to do is, you know, just follow a URL link in the web browser, and there I have access to all of the risk information that I saw in my dashboard, but now it's associated with 3D model environment, right? So now we're getting a step closer to that industry standard that things is the way forward, and we can actually make the most of it, right? And I no longer have to have, let's say, a Revit license to create some sort of beacon and drop it in there and have it fixed. No, I can easily come in here, move that beacon, add a new one, add a comment, whatever it is, and we all work remotely now, right? We can't be in the same room, so that's exactly what I'm doing. I come into this environment, I notice there are some risks, I can filter them through this list, you know, click on things and it will take me around, or I can essentially, you know, navigate around the model and then see there's a risk pin and actually click on it and it will take me there. Now, the real benefit of, okay, let's say I do have access to this 3D model, right? The real benefit is not about you just panning around and thinking to yourself, oh, isn't it fancy? That's great, right? So we already resolved one of the biggest problems is the information exchange, right? We send an email, we forget to CC somebody leaves the company, nobody responds to it, or something else happens along the way. Those issues are in the past, right? Everything is here. You know exactly what the risk is, you know exactly what they're talking about, you know exactly what kind of associated activity might be happening or element type it is. If you have any comments, you can add them, you know, you can go and say, okay, I will, you know, take a look at this now. You know, I'll add that as a comment that will be logged in the system. There's a full audit trail. Even if I fall ill next week, somebody can always see what's happened and pick it up from here onwards. But the real benefit is that since I do have access to this 3D model, this is where you really start resolving your risks. You know, you're not just looking at your standard 2D drawing sheets and then thinking, well, what else can we do with it, right? If somebody does point out and says that, you know, there's a beam that is not positioned correctly, somebody might hit their head, or how do we do anything else around it? I can also leverage the ability of, you know, interacting with this model myself also, you know. I might go and capitalize on other feature that we have, you know. I might go and use my groups to help me understand, well, where things are. You know, I might want to go and say, well, where is the structure actually in this building, right? I can then see what's happening with it. Maybe I want to go and say, well, okay, hold on. This is a bit complicated. There's a lot of structural elements floating about. If we move this beam, how else does it affect everything else, right? I want to go and say, let's have a look where the steel beams are, right? And how it's connected with columns. And I might want to say, let's go even more granular and say where the girders are and where the steel beam joists are, right? So we then see the exact structural components from their purpose, right? And whilst I'm in this environment, once again, I'm only a few clicks away from getting more information out of it, right? If I want to know more about it, I can click on an element. If there's BIM data, it's all in here. I can actually learn about it more. If I want to, you know, change my view as well, once again, I can assign my actual clip plane, you know, cut it elsewhere. If something gets in my way, I click on it, I hide it in view, maybe hide that element as well. But then instantly, as you can see in here, I get a bigger picture and a better picture of what is happening on this project. And if I have, once again, a further comment, I might go and say, actually, let's add a screenshot in here, and then go and say, you know, have a look at this entire junction. It looks a bit messy to me. Have a look here, right? So I'm going to add that as a comment. And what's really nice is that whoever's working on this project, right? Let's say they open up this for the very first time, you know, let's say we remove all of our fancy views and things, right? If I come into this environment and I see this risk, if I notice that there is a comment made, I don't just get a fancy screenshot and then once again find myself in the same pickle of trying to scratch my head and think, well, what is it they're talking about? You know, I can go to that comment. I can actually go to that same view, you know, and that's powered by the fact that I still have access to exactly the same information the other individual had access to, right? So within a few clicks, I'm able to get straight to the point, right? And I think those time-saving moments are the ones that are so valuable when you're mitigating risks and trying to resolve things on site. One of the other things you'll notice as well is that when I click through these risks, the views change a lot as well. And in this particular use case, you'll find what's really interesting is that, okay, you know, there's a lot of conversation happening. There's a lot of information exchange, you know, people are exchanging some sort of documents, you know, I instantly know what it is that they're talking about. You know, there might be something else associated with risk or something like that. What's really nice is that since we are working in this environment of, let's say, identifying these risks and following the industry standards, because everything else that you submit in here is industry standards, right? And everything can be predefined by your team. What's really great is to not waste time and capitalize on it, right? Should I have encountered similar risk that is to do with physical edge protection, you know, we're fearing that someone's going to fall from the edge and it's during this slab construction or something like that, I may well go back to my database and go and ask through Repo, have we encountered something like that in the past and have we resolved it successfully? So instead of wasting time, you know, waiting for that bi-weekly meeting to happen where you speak about this, get the ball rolling already. You know, you can go back and ask the query our database and go and say, oh, brilliant, we had exactly the same issue maybe a couple of years ago. Our database picked this up, and then we can go and say, well, we're looking at detailed design and we're looking actually eliminating this. Okay, cool. Maybe let's go with this, right? So once I do that, it automatically populates my fields. How much information you have there, it's entirely up to you, how much you choose to input and take out through the Repo database. But once again, I'm not wasting time. I'm leveraging on this information that I submit, you know, day in, day out across multiple projects. Why do we have to reinvent the wheel? You know, why can't we just, you know, use the same approved method of risk resolution from the past instead of talking about the same thing again and again? Now, what's really nice as well, since our latest development and actually going into the 4D analytics of models and animations and all of that stuff, what's really nice is that you'll notice there's a new tab in safety base, and that's called sequencing. What that means is that now risks may well be associated with a particular time in the construction sequence, right? And what's really nice is that this may well be associated with a 4D model that you can push to through your repo as well. How I know that is because it's associated with sequence. It's not just the time, it's actually a sequence that associated with it. So with just a click of a button, I can learn more about it. So I don't have to wait for a week once again to get a synchro specialist to open the model, find that actual sequence and show me more about it. An absolute BIM novice, I can just click on the button and it will tell me more about the sequence that's happening at that moment in time. I instantly know, okay, well, that's to do with slab deck, or, maybe I want to know more about it. I click on it and it tells me when does it start, when does it finish, what kind of constraints or status it may be, or whatever it is. So within 3 clicks of a button, I can understand more. But what's really nice is that I'm not just, getting information about all of this. I can actually process it further. I can actually play back that sequence and then see, well, okay, if we have this risk, how else does it happen? And where else we may encounter this? I see, obviously, there's slab pour everywhere. And as you look around, you may notice that actually some risks start popping in as you navigate around the model, right? So for instance, if we go back to the safety-based list, you can view it here, or you can also view it through the pins located all around the model. You may notice that actually there's, as we're playing back through sequence, there's a new risk that we think might be happening there. So when we click on it, it instantly notifies us of it as well, so that we know exactly what it is. So that's the real benefit. It's you not just, reviewing risks through looking at flat list of risks. It's also you reviewing risks by, just scrubbing through the timeline or the sequence. You can choose any moment in time, any kind of interval, but essentially what you're able to do is capitalize on the model information exchange, whether it's a static Revit designer's model, or whether it's an actual construction sequence program from, let's say, a synchro modeler. You can bring it into 3D Repo and make the most of it, right? You will identify your risks during early design stages. You can even do it in pre-construction or even during construction. But as your sequence plays back, you can know more about it, or you can see if there are any risks associated with those, so that now you're actually connecting more than just, a BIM expert team. You are connecting a team that may well be on site, who gets, a pre-construction meeting together. They can all log into 3D Repo, see what's happening, try and resolve the risk, maybe click on a button, and we'll take them to the actual risk and then show them what's happening in there. So that's how you use safety-based in 3D Repo, and that's essentially how it helps you to speed up your processes. But most importantly, unlock the most important feature is the BIM models themselves, right? Quite often, most of the time, we're encouraged to do those, but when we spend so much time developing them, it would be a shame not to capitalize on it and share with 90% of the team that should comment back on any kind of design progress or any kind of risks that you may identify. So that's us working within the 3D Repo environment, right? I showed you that that's all great. You create all of that data. You can see it however you want to. Now, that's bringing information into 3D Repo and then making this your centralized hub. How can you capitalize on it to make sure that others can benefit? First and foremost, we showed you that you can benefit from it by simply finally having the access to it, right? You can actually find out what the team is talking about and what the team is trying to evaluate. Second of all, you can easily see where things are, where things stand, where they're heading and stuff like that. And if you want to, you can easily report on those things as well, right? You can, create PDF reports or anything like that, send it to the team. The brilliant thing is, if they receive this report, they're only one click away from actually seeing it in 3D Repo. I can just click on this button and it will take me to that URL link, right? So within one click, I can see both my risk information and my model as well. So notice that I no longer have to spend 10 minutes trying to understand where is this model in my common data environment that I have to download. And oh my God, I don't have an application to open it, right? So I don't waste my time, right? I can see exactly what's happening in here, what the risk is. Within a few seconds, I'm able to quickly comment back, and maybe the person modeling this building can quickly change it in Revit or whatever tool they're using. So that's one of the ways that you can bring information out. There's another piece of information that you can bring out and make the most of, is the actual risks themselves, right? You can evaluate those elsewhere. So for instance, if I happen to have a different file format and I'm working in another application and I want to see those risks there or comment back on those, I can do that as well, right? So I may have a different project I'm working on, right? And I may have a model for it as well. I may use 3D Repo just to, log my risks and things. I might not have a 3D model in 3D Repo, or I may do as well. But essentially, the real benefit is if somebody does have access to, let's say, this exactly same environment. So for instance, if you go to another team space in another project, I'll show you that, in fact, there is another project I may be working on at the same time. And I may well open up my model and raise some risks and things. But what happens to somebody who may be using another application? Well, they can bring those down. They can make use of our plugin. Once again, this plugin is very handy because it gets access to 3D Repo. And then in here, as we can see, if I refresh it, it pulls all of the latest information, and I can go around my model and evaluate all of the risks identified in 3D Repo, but now in another application. And not only have access to all of the information exchange as well, all of the comments, any kind of resources, maybe some people are sharing some links or PDF documents. I also have access to my treatment suggestions from here as well. So as I pointed out, we're creating this central hub, but we're not creating that central hub where you have to use that or nothing else. We're creating a central hub that you can have access to whatever application through whatever application you're using, right? So I may be working in Navisworks, right? I may want to raise some risk, and I may want to understand, has my company witnessed something similar in the past, and are there any best way to resolve it? Okay, let's maybe propose that to the rest of the team. But now I'm moving away from that annoying exercise of, it's only me who can place this pin, then I issue my model, then if somebody has a comment about it, they can't move it, they can't comment back, we have to wait for a meeting, forget about it. That's a thing of a past that is completely inefficient in my opinion. Another use case for it is to perhaps maybe report on these things, right? I may want to look at this project outside of 3D Repo environment in my choice of application, right? So I'm only one click away. Once again, I just click refresh, we make an API request to 3D Repo, and we pull all of the latest data down, right? If there is any kind of data change, you may have noticed a few things here have changed, you'll notice it, right? But then you can drill through this information, whatever other application you may be using, right? If I don't like working in Excel, or if I want to just have a better analytics tool of my choice to understand where these risks are happening, or how much of a resolution happened to it that I am not aware of, or I want to know, you can do that as well. And that could be Power BI as an example, or it could be Tableau, or whatever other application you want to choose or use. But once again, the real beauty is, if I love using a business analytics tool like this, and I'm looking around and I'm looking at this risk and I'm getting all this information about it, and I can see exactly what's happening with it. If I want to learn more about it, once again, I'm only one click away. So I just click that button, and not only I get information of the risk itself, I also get the information of the model and the context itself also. I don't have to go and ask my BIM manager to install some sort of application, or ask him to spend half an hour with me teaching me how I can open this simple 3D model and just see this in context. When I'm in context, I can interact with it more. I might go and say, well, let's have a look at how big this platform, can we change maybe the size of it or something else? It's that response to evaluating risks that really benefits the whole process, not necessarily automating things by BIM professionals, but by assessing it quicker by the rest of the team. So yeah, I think I'll probably conclude it here in terms of the presentation, and we shall probably open this up to further discussion and Q&A. And if you guys have any questions, fire away. I'll be happy to show you a few examples.
Thanks, Bogdan. That was great. Really enjoyed it. Hopefully everybody found the demonstration, as insightful as I do every time I see you guys, the product team demonstrate the platform. I certainly learn a little bit more every time I see you guys present. So thank you. We've had a few questions come through on the Q&A. So I'm going to ask some of these. If Andrew, you could jump in just to support with any answers. Let's have a quick look at what we've got. So do we need to have synchro for the 4D sequence to work? Bogdan, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So currently we support Synchro. Yes, you can export SPM files and publish them through your repo. That's where it currently stands. But we also have a 4D API. What we're working on now is integrating with other 4D applications like Soft and the likes of that. So essentially what you'll be able to do is in not so distant future, I'm talking about maybe a couple of months or so, is to publish 4D sequences from other applications, like maybe your timeline exercise in Navisworks or somewhere else. So essentially you can compile that information into a CSV or JSON document and push it through your repo, either via APIs or an upload. So that's something, yeah, I would say keep an eye out on. We'll be throwing updates on that matter. We'll be happy to show you some examples and teach you how to do it if you really want to capitalize on it.
Thanks, Bogdan. Another one here. Can I view or create risks from within authoring tools? I think you covered this off, but if you just want to touch on this again, that'd be great.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. So if I want to identify a risk or create it within design authoring tool, I have exactly the same capabilities. So if I, zoom in on something and I'm not particularly happy with maybe the height of this concrete plinth or whatever it may be, I can easily create a risk from here as well. Give it any information like likelihood, consequence, who's the owner, all of the information like drop-down fields, they're all pre-populated, so people don't have to, write poems in here. Sometimes they do, you can just quickly choose things that you think make sense. And then you can also, add a markup as well. So if this is something that you think that is particularly important, you do that. You raise that as a risk. You save that in your design authoring tool of your choice, maybe something like Revit or Navisworks or Civil 3D or whatever it may be. And that will become available in 3D Repo as well. So if we go back to our 3D Repo environment, just show you quickly, I believe that was this project, safety base. If we go to Kanban board, that was the quickest. We'll see that the risk that I just raised, it's instantly popped up and it's in a database, so I can see it here. So the information exchange is instant and it's pretty much there on the spot.
Brilliant, thank you. Another one here, assuming 3D Repo will work with any open API CDE. Yeah, well, absolutely. As I mentioned in the presentation, as long as the software vendor, the other end is open and happy to connect with us, then yeah, of course, if they're open with their API, then the options to connect with the CDEs are absolutely there. The workflows, the use cases generally get developed on a case by case. It all depends on what that particular user or that particular company needs from the connection from 3D Repo to the CDE. But yeah, we're happy to explore all use cases in connecting to other platforms, not just CDEs. So yeah, again, reach out if you've got a particular use case, and we can certainly discuss that and see whether there's an option there. Okay, what else have we got? There's a few more further up. Is it possible to import automatically our risk register developed within another software? I mean, we talked about 3D Repo with the Revit plugins there. But can we import the full risk registers, Bogdan?
Yeah, of course. Like I pointed out, for instance, one thing to be aware of is that the risk register in 3D Repo is following a PAS 1192.6 schema. So all of the input fields are here predefined as per industry standard. So we had a lot of our users who have migrated from traditional, CDM risk registers or anything like that to the likes of safety base. And all they had to do is maybe just figure out which column relates to which part of the actual industry standard. And once that was done, we literally just published from Excel directly. They develop their own macros if they want to, or using APIs, any other application or various means like that.
Okay, another one here. Can you export Revit phasing to 3D Repo to support high-level 4D programs?
Yeah, precisely. I mean, most definitely you can, because all of the information resides in here. So for instance, if we look at just this example, I'm not actually aware if there is anything related to phasing. But for instance, if you do have information that's to do with phase, you can use it for your own benefit, right? So if I have a Revit model and it has data in it, and if it does have some sort of phase, phase created name, new construction, you can select element based on that phase, right? In this particular case, this only has new construction, but, I might want to create a group and then say new construction, right? So that's my phasing program in here. So using these groups, I can then easily identify what is the new construction, what isn't, right? The same case can be done for any information embedded in the file to maybe not just have a high-level construction program overview, but maybe more of a detailed kind of like a construction delivery on site as well. So for instance, I'll show you a quick example of maybe you not looking at the phases within the Revit file, but maybe construction phases information. That could be like an instance or a type parameter. So just bear with me 1 second. I'm loading this model. But here's a nice useful example out of the box, just to show you. Let's say we might be looking at plant room installation progress, right? And all of this could be based once again on the data that resides in our actual model itself, so we can find that plant room installation sequence maybe in our BIM data, and then we can easily either make API requests from external tools using iPad apps or QR codes or anything like that, or even within 3D Repo. So actually, let's have a look. Which one would that be called? That would be called plant room, right? So I'm looking for plant room. I can then have a look at maybe information like what phase 1 of this installation, what's the phase 2 of this installation, what currently installed on site, what's in progress, right? What's overdue, this particular unit, we have more information about it. So all of that information can be interpreted however you want in 3D Repo. But the real benefit is that once you have access to this, you can comment back on it. I can go in and raise a risk or an issue. Somebody can actually evaluate it. That's the benefit.
Great stuff. All right. Time for one last question. I'm conscious of time. I'm sure most of the audience, as most of us have probably got 11 a.m. Meetings in our, sorry, 11:30 in our diary. So the last question, how was the 3D model built? Is it a real world building that has been 3D scanned on completion? Or has it been built from scratch in Revit and then it been assessed for health and safety prior to build commencing? So yeah, how was the 3D model built, Bogdan? And essentially what's the use case for this?
Oh, well, it's entirely up to you, to be honest with you. You can build these models however you want, right? This could well be you inheriting a file and then building out this sequence in Synchro. And then before you actually begin construction, you're just evaluating your construction program, right? It could be you maybe inheriting Revit files, right? Like I pointed out, these are designers files, and then I'm evaluating what kind of delivery method or what type of materials they proposed, and then I'm just seeing where things are. Like I showed you an example of me reviewing what MEP engineer proposed in my plant room area, right? So you can use models coming from Revit, Civil 3D, Navisworks, IFC file format, whatever data format you have, we can consume it. Subsequently, if you do have some sort of scan or information like that, we have a few examples. For instance, some survey information. Let's say we might be looking at housing development. It could be a drone scan going over, which they then took as a point cloud and then they turned it into a mesh, right? So when you do that, you can actually maybe go around and go and say, oh, guys, like I'm looking at site conditions. I'm not noticing any kind of like restriction barriers or anything like that here. If I'm not happy with it, once again, I go into my environment, I raise my risk, I say, I say where it's happening, like in this location, it's a high priority risk. Can you guys please review it? You save that, and there it is. And it doesn't matter to me kind of which file format I'm working with. The main and most important thing is that I can bring it into here, into 3D Repo, and then anybody can just open this file and start communicating essentially.
Great stuff. Brilliant. Okay, thanks, Bogdan. Well, look, that's it for today's session. I want to leave you guys a little bit of time just before your next sessions. Just to remind you all, if anybody has any questions or would like to know more about 3D Repo, please reach out to us. Use the sales@3drepo.com email address. On our website, you can also sign up for a free account, 3D Repo. That gives you 100 meg of space to collaborate with 5 users. So if you guys want to have a play and a trial, just jump on, download a free account, throw some models in, start raising issues, start collaborating with your colleagues. And then if you guys want to know more, look, please feel free to reach out to us at any point. Bogdan, thank you for your demonstration. And yeah, look, we hope to speak to you guys again in the future. Thank you all for your attendance.
Thanks, guys. Have a good Friday and enjoy your weekend. Nice having you. Thanks, James. Have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you. Bye.